Any changes to the agenda? I guess not. I'm assuming you can hear me in there.
Yep.
We can hear you.
All right. Let's see. Oh, anyone from the public out there, Remy?
Couple members in the room.
Have any comments they want to make?
I do. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about 12 Franklin Street.
Can you tell us your name and
Yep.
where you live?
Kate Coffee, Manso Street.
I can't see, that's why I asked.
Oh, that's all right. I appreciate the public comment and this like exclamation point, but I can't tell on these items 4 and 5 if we're going to talk about 12 Franklin Street. So I'll just bring these up now. I would like to know what the process is for getting a third-party review of the 12 Franklin Street project. There is one mistake being noted and acknowledged. I believe there are additional mistakes made on that property. There are 2 that I can see with my eyes, and I have asked this before to respectfully request a third-party review of the project at 12 Franklin at these meetings, and I believe that the owners of 10 Franklin Street have made a written request for the same, and that hasn't happened as far as I know. So I'm asking what the process is for a review of a project like 12 Franklin Street.
So let me ask you, Kate, exactly what you mean by a third-party review. Are you looking at, are you talking about reviewing how the approvals were given, or you think you asked about something?
No, so the acknowledged mistake is that the driveway is right on the setback, which is a violation, as I understand it. The site plan also does not show asphalt all the way back to the rear property line, but that is what's there on site. On site, there's also a asphalt pad outside of a door at the back that is not shown on the site plan.
Okay.
So I would like to, have it all measured out, compared to the standards for that type of development.
I mean, I don't know, maybe Remy or from someone from the DRB or Thomas would have more understanding or insight about what can be done, but it seems to me that, it's, other than if that pad you're talking about and the pavement is extended too far from what was on the plans, I assume those could be, the developer, the owner could be forced to remove that. But other than that, I don't know at this point. I mean, everything's up, it was approved, whether it was, a mistake or not, it's there. So I don't know what can be done. So I'll ask Remy or someone on the DRB or Thomas if they have any insight or can explain it better.
I can just take a stab.
Am I off base with what I said? I don't know.
Well, it seems like, before it's built, there's an appeal period, right? So after it's built, it's sort of out of the purview of the DRB as far as I understand it. And I don't know that the city has a process to review that something was built in accordance with the permit. It would be the code enforcement division, but I don't know that there's any sort of process set up to request or do that. And I would think they would have to be established, so you're not just having people claiming somebody didn't build it and having sort of nuisance requests for that sort of thing. I would think, so Ravi can clear it up, but I don't think there is any, I mean, we inspect apartments,
Well,
but
I
I
don't-
don't know that, and at the time of the certificate of occupancy, it would be inspected to see that it met the permit. But if you're claiming that the permit was granted incorrectly, I don't know what the remedy for that is. That's a legal question that it's beyond what
It
I
is a
know.
legal question, yeah.
So, yeah, we do inspect new buildings when they are built. That's part of the certificate of occupancy process. So one unit has been issued a certificate of occupancy. There are there's a couple other elements that need to be checked before the other certificates of occupancy can be issued for the units, specifically the affordability element. For larger elements in a project that are in the ground that are not in the plan, those would have to be removed or remediated or corrected before the certificate of occupancy can be issued. However, per case law, there's an understanding that plans change over time, and so there's flexibility in permits too, and with a certain amount of finality as well. So small shifts, small amounts of concrete for a walkway, tested, of course, by law, they may be admissible to be there because things happen during construction, and there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility in permits. In this case, I'll just say that with the small amount of walkway pavement, I would consider that part of that flexibility, just because it is a very small amount of pavement to connect the doorway to the driveway. And you can test that if you'd like and appeal it. I'm saying it in a public meeting. You're welcome to appeal that and have the DRB test it. And then with the amount of pavement on the back, I determined that to be in compliance so far in looking at the site plan, so that's what I'll go with.
I can see the site plan from here, and the asphalt does not go all the way to the back, to the road property line. It does on site.
Okay, well, I'll check again.
I think, I'm sorry, I don't know.
David.
David, the fact is that there really wasn't an appeals process for this. This was administratively reviewed. The occupants next door were really left out of the process, and it's unfortunate. And, I think that I've heard that Revy saying that he's sorry about the mistakes and understands the gravity of them and is trying to do better. But the only thing that I understand that has come from the city to the owner is via the owner of the large building at 12 Franklin offering to put on snow guards on the roof, So the other question that I've brought up here before is I asked about what is affordability for the 2 of the 3 units at 12 Franklin. It should be something that we are able to provide a number for. And I'm asking, how do we get to that number? there's a formula, right?
So that's,
You're worried about purchase price, sale price?
yeah, so that's set up by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's set per section 5.14 at 100% AMI. That's around, the sale price is around $410,000 based on the affordability chart that the HUD issues. There's also an income requirement as well. So the income based on the size of the household would have to meet the 30% of housing costs. The household can spend no more than 30% of their housing costs on housing per month. So it's twofold. There would be a check on the selling side to make sure that the unit is sold per the price that's set by HUD, and then on the verification that we check with help from Winooski Housing Authority or any of our housing partners to make sure that the income meets the requirement.
Is it possible to provide the formula to get to 410%? I hear you explain
So
it,
if
but
you-
it takes me a minute to understand, and I am a check, but I'll believe you, but I'm gonna verify.
Yeah, so if you look up, so HUD has their formula too, so you can look
Mhm.
it up, HUD affordability, and check it up by the MSA. It's per the South Burlington MSA. An easier way to look it up is just Google VHFA affordability chart, and VHFA issues an affordability chart
Mhm.
every year pretty much. And so on that lists the size per household for income, and then
Mhm.
also the sale price based off of the percentage AMI that the unit is set at. And it's all on one chart.
So, three-bedroom, they're three-bedroom units.
Yes.
In this area, $410,000 is considered affordable.
I mean, I can't say what's considered affordable, it's not considered affordable, but per HUD guidelines and the calculation that HUD has provided, they have determined that is affordable.
Okay.
And that's listed in the regulations, right, that tie
Yes.
to that is,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it defines affordable for our
Yes.
regulations.
Yep.
Yes.
It's interesting because I asked this question after seeing the around $400,000 number on Redfin or whatever several months ago, and I wasn't able to get that answer then, but here we are. And I think at the time you were working with them to get,
Yeah.
but the
Still-
number didn't go down. But thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Anyone else from the public want to address the groups? Guess not.
No, you got one, Mike.
We got one.
What's that?
I said you got one comment.
Hi, my name is Eli Ogilvy. I live on, right now, West Allen Street. My question is, there was a lot of discussion with, I guess it was the previous planning commission, but a lot of discussion about percentage coverage of blank space on buildings. And historically, in a lot of the other towns around us, as well as the form-based code that we have in our planning documents, we typically do based off per level, so it's 15% per level of floor and not by area. I just wanted to get clarification on why it was done on a per area by 15 by 15 for the proposed changes versus per level that we've done in other sections of
Yeah,
it.
just to clarify, you mean
talking about
the
blank wall?
blank wall?
Blank wall, yep,
Yeah.
sorry, I should
Yeah.
have prefaced a little differently. That is all, I don't know if anyone had any comments.
You want to take it, Randy?
I mean, this is more of a question for you. I think this is, I mean, the planning commission has had a lot of conversation and discussion about blank wall area and how you wanted to do it. And there was a lot of concerns about making sure that there was like a two-dimensional plane on the side of a facade that a 15 by 15 foot plane was the maximum amount of a blank wall area instead of doing it by floor. Form-based code does it by floor. All the nearby municipalities do it by floor. Smart code, the model ordinance for form-based code, does it by floor. But you and the planning commission felt pretty strongly about doing it by area, and a few municipalities in the country do it by area.
I think my memory of that conversation that came from our typologies report. I think he was the one that first recommended it. And yeah, I don't remember exactly what the discussion was, why one over the other. I think it had to do with like there were some older style buildings that would need one and not the other.
I think there was a concern over the builder potentially using like very small windows or like porthole. I remember a long conversation about porthole windows.
Yeah.
So like putting a porthole window on a level and saying like, oh, there's a window on that level, so I've met the requirement.
Yeah, so Jeff, I think he was pretty ambivalent. He's always recommended doing it by floor. So our form-based code was written by him, and Williston's form-based code also written by him. And in both of those codes, it's by floor. The portholes conversation was something. I won't provide any other comments, but I think you were kind of getting in on there, Thomas, that there was a concern about the stacking of the blank walls per level. So, and then in essence creating a larger blank wall than what was intended. I think because that could be a stairwell, right? That could stack up. And so there would be a blank wall that would cover an entire stairwell. So I think that was one of the concerns that was part of that conversation. Was
Like you could put all your windows up on like the far right side, and then you created a giant blank wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember
Provided
also,
any thoughts, just I think that's what the conversation was.
Yeah.
I'd say also we went back and forth a lot, and we decided we needed to just do something, and we can always refine it too. So I think it was kind of split, and we're like, we need to get this in our regulations as soon as we can. So I think it's something we'd probably return to too. That's what I recollect. That we're like, let's just do that and refine it as we go. So
Does the
it's
city
someplace
council have any thoughts about which they would prefer?
What was the question?
If city council has thoughts on what we would prefer,
Council as a whole has not voted on it.
we haven't
discussed it yet.
we haven't discussed it that much. It was raised as a question as to why it was done, and Robbie and I kind of had the same conversation we just had. And I think we were going to, because we sent what you all had sent to us last time. I believe we sent back with some slight revision asks.
You had some requests.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I forget if the blank wall was one of them.
No.
No. Yeah, I think we just landed that if you all had thought that was best, that we'd keep moving it and allow you guys to keep working on it if that's what you felt was necessary, but, yeah.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I don't really remember. I know we talked about floors, per floor, and we had discussion about, was it 15 and 20%, or we had all kinds of discussions about it. And quite honestly, I don't really remember where we landed, but I thought it was area included the whole facade of the front of the building. I don't know.
So
I'll go back and
that's
read
two things, right? So I think Mike, you're talking about the transparency. So then the windows.
Yeah.
So that's one piece that we went back and forth about, and the final draft is at 15% based on your input and just looking into what other municipalities do and what we do in our townhouse areas and what has been successful in nearby municipalities and with us. And then the blank wall area piece was trying to get like a 15 by 15 foot square and making sure that there's no blank wall area that exceeds that 15 by 15 foot square on the front of the building.
Yeah, I'll just,
Why the question? What's the concern?
so from my public comment perspective, it's excess complexity that's not necessarily needed. If you can achieve the same goal with per floor, it keeps the code more simplified, easier to read, more consistent across the whole entire unified land use code. That's why my main concern. It's weird to have one thing out of all the transparency. Like transparency is done based off per floor, form-based code is based off floor. It's odd to have one area just be done by area. So that was my only concern.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a building, you're not just looking at a floor of a building, and a floor of a building, and a floor of a building, so you're looking at the whole wall, right? So from that perspective, it seems to make sense.
Eli, I appreciate the comment about trying to simplify the uniform land use regulations. Pushing for that.
I
No
know
worries.
that's a goal of yours, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Eli.
You got nobody else in the room, mate.
What's that?
Nobody else in the room.
No one online?
No one online.
All right. Let's move on to number 4, discussion recently reviewed development review projects.
Okay, so I kind of put this agenda very open-ended with development review projects and then the recent changes to the ULUDR and changes currently under consideration. I think with item 4, I might turn it over to you, David, if you want to talk about some projects that you've reviewed and some highlights and some concerns that have been raised, especially as you look at the notes that you provided. That I'm putting you on the spot, but I think it might be best to come from you.
I deflect to Aaron's concerns were more specific, and I'm happy to go with my more general ones, but I think you had more questions about specific projects. I mean, I'm thinking of the gas station, which was withdrawn, and then just in general, a lot of anger I feel like we're getting from the public about the new density in particular, and having to explain that they should come here and talk to you about that, that we're just enforcing the rules. But if you want to bring up a couple particular ones we can start with.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I tried to put my thoughts into the email. The gas station one was an interesting one. This was from our last meeting. And I thought they brought up some good points about, you know, how the form-based code is pretty limiting, and does not allow like redevelopment of a gas station the way that most gas stations are currently designed. They brought up the fact that, you know, have you ever seen a gas station, except for the one that just got redeveloped at exit 15, have you ever seen a gas station with only one driveway? And I thought about it during that meeting, and I was like, I can't think of another location of a gas station that has just one driveway. They said that's real problematic. They said, you know, for deliveries, they said the Coke delivery, the guy comes to the Champlain Farms gas station, parks there, makes the delivery there, then wheels his cases over to the mobile station because he can't get in and out of the mobile station with just the one driveway. He talked a lot about just kind of the two-story building. So they've got a two-story building there for Maple Fields now, and the top story is not occupied, not used. It's only there to meet the two-story requirement. So from a form perspective, it meets the form, but doesn't necessarily meet the function, I think, that the city is going for. I don't think the city is going for just form. And I think that, you know, that came up a few years ago with the parking structures and kind of the facade on the developments, you know, that are just over here, where really behind that first floor is just parking, and, you know, there was a change to the code. That says you have to have parking underground. You can't just have a facade there. So I don't think it's just about the form. I think it's about the function as well. And I don't know, do we want to force gas stations as they redevelop to meet that form? You know, there's one that's redeveloped, and you think about the others in town, you know, they're aging, they're older, and potential for redevelopment in the future. And are they gonna be kind of harnessed by the same, you know, problems that Champlain Farms sees? We did encourage them to come to a planning commission meeting and kind of voice their concern. I'm not sure if they plan to do that or not, but, yeah, David, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's good for that
Good point too, or they, good point, because I think all the gas stations are in the form-based code, right?
They're all in the form-based code gateway districts, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
The next question I had was on character of the neighborhood, on that review metric, and I know it's proposed to be removed from the code. I guess just trying to understand what the planning commission's vision for, how do you look at the character in the context? And really, how is the city planning to maintain its identity with new or redeveloped properties, you know, without that character of the neighborhood?
Can I jump in there?
Sure.
There's sort of like a logistical question I had that's related to that, which was my first bullet point on the first page, which is the relationship that you see or is intended between the planning document and then the actual land use regulations. Because we'll have a lot of people recently particularly come and say, yeah, this doesn't meet the character of the neighborhood. It doesn't meet what the intention in this planning document says. And my take has always been that the land use regulations are a implementation of those intentions, but there's some language that's brought directly over into the land use regulations about character of the neighborhood, and it makes it a little confusing as to what's intended there. You know, is that intended to give us discretion to decide based on that intention? Or can we go more strictly and say, hey, look, it meets the height, it meets the density, that's the character of the neighborhood that was intended, or is intended going forward? That's just like a philosophical question, and Ravi can probably, he talks about it to his freshmen or whatever when he's teaching it, but that's something that's not clear to me, and I think is maybe not clear to applicants when they come.
Mike, I saw you were gonna speak, but the term character of the neighborhood was removed by the planning commission, and the council approved that. So that's no longer something that you should have to base any decisions off of.
But unless I'm mistaken, there's still parts that were taken from the planning documents as criteria for PUDs or this or that. It has paragraphs in there that talk about this is a livable, walkable neighborhood sort of thing, which is vague, right?
Mhm.
So it's still leaving it open for interpretation and for us, which is fine. I don't want to be a robot, you know, but it makes it complicated, you know, to say, I think it meets all these hard regulations, but maybe somebody sees it that it doesn't, it's not a pedestrian friendly, there's too many cars in front or behind or whatever, you know? There's a lot of, I think I've explained what I mean.
Yeah, I think that, you know, being in the code, the character of the neighborhood, you know, allows us some flexibility to look at what is the density of a neighborhood, right? What is the lot size, the minimum lot size that's called by the code? You know, what are the size of the buildings that are there today, and what's being proposed for development? And to really kind of make a judgment of, is it an appropriate development, or is it out of place, out of character? And so I guess I'm just kind of concerned a little bit that, you know, we no longer have that flexibility to look at it. And I know there's reasons why. And I guess without it, how is, like, I guess what is the view of the planning commission for how do you maintain the identity of the city? And how do you, kind of guide the development in each of the zones to meet, like, what that vision is?
And that's something that we've been dealing with, and as you said, the character of the neighborhood term was taken out. Discussion on that, it was brought up that it's historically been used as a racist comment, I guess. And so we took that out, but we're gonna work on defining, just what you said. What do we mean, when we talk about, instead of character of the neighborhood, what are we talking about? Is it density? Is it height? Is it, open space? Those things. So we have to get our arms around that, and it's been I think we've discussed it for a couple of meetings, at least. Yeah, and so it's good to hear your input about, how it impacts your decision making. And if you have any thoughts, about specifically how we can improve that, and make the wording such that, it's easier for folks to understand, easier for you folks to interpret, I guess. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think,
After you, Matt, I'd like to.
yeah, and I think the intention is to define character of the area, the planning commission putting that into the code. So we're defining what the character of the different areas are through sort of the zoning code and, you know, setbacks and all of that, which again, will make it hopefully clearer for the DRB, but also clearer for applicants. So they don't have to make a determination of character of the area if they think what they're proposing is gonna fit into that, go through this whole process, only later hear down the road from the DRB that it doesn't meet that. So the clearer that we can be in our zoning code, the clearer it'll be for everybody. And I think that's our intention for removing character of the area from the code. Not that, again, the planning commission isn't considering character of the area in our creation of that code.
Yeah.
I would second that. And also, we're doing the typology study that's helping kind of inform that, to understand what those pieces and parts are that should be there to guide you to understand what fits contextually.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to maybe get into some examples, there's 2 projects I think that come to mind, or maybe 3. The 2 projects on Franklin Street, the one that's been built, the one that's, there was a second one that got administratively approved, but then came in front of the DRB, because they wanted to get rid of the affordability side of things, I believe. I don't know if I'm 100% right on that, but anyway, I think anybody can look at those and say it's out of context for, you know, that neighborhood.
We were pretty jarred when, that triggered a lot of stuff, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, so I want
I-
to, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, I think the second one, at least for me, is the Armory project. I think we can look at that and say, well, that's out of context for the surrounding development that's there, the density that's there. So,
I think there's a tension that the city has to resolve between the character of the neighborhood as it is and preservation of that, and the character going forward. You know, things are gonna change. The code is anticipating change, so people come and they're upset because there was a house, you know, a single-family house with a front yard, and now there's a 6-unit apartment building with barely any grass on the lot and no front door, no porch. So
and if that's the direction of the city and the planning commission, so be it, but.
that's the character that is anticipated by the regulations we've passed. So we just have to educate people and say, that's where it's going, so they can push back if that's what they want and change that direction for the city. But you can't have the character of the neighborhood be preserving what's there and allowing for change at the same time if it's a change to what's there.
Yeah, I think.
And one of the things that we've bumped up against is the state statute, where now if you can put a single-family home on a lot, you can automatically put 2 and up to 4, if it meets dimensional requirements as a right. So, I mean, all that gets to character of the neighborhood as well.
Yeah. And there is a general push to add density, just everywhere. And we're trying to deal with making that feel like it fits in and doesn't feel jarring.
Yeah, for me anyway, that really came to light with kind of hearing both sides of the Armory project. And it seems like there is a section of society that is just like, build, build, build. Who cares what the future holds? Like, who cares what the ramifications are in the future? Just build. And, you know, I think there's another section of society that is like, what happens 10 years from now after we've had this uncontrolled development? And what is our home look like? What does our city look like if that occurs?
Mike, is
I'll
there,
tell you,
She's been waiting.
Mike, is
sorry.
there a process for allowing public comment during this part of the conversation? I think she'd like to speak, or she can just chime in. All right, great, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize, I missed the last meeting where this was taken out, and I haven't gone back to watch the video, or I would have brought it up in the public comment section. It is very true that this character of the area, sometimes called character of the neighborhood, has been used in the past in the United States to keep certain disadvantaged people out of neighborhoods, and that's a real shame. Mike, you brought up the state statutes. I do want to point out that the Home Act takes out the character of the area for affordable housing only, where our Planning Commission and our City Council have chosen to take it out across the board. I think the ramifications for that are 8X, which hasn't been built yet and looks remarkably like 12 Franklin Street. There's nothing for the DRB to push back against. I would recommend strongly that the Planning Commission and the City Council talk to the state and understand their reasons why they took it out only for the affordable housing component and not the other portions of new residential development. I think that there's something there that they might foresee as design and building professionals that is being missed here. And I think that just putting that in and hoping that 8 Franklin Street will become more appealing if we just build it, it is quite short-sighted, unfortunately. I believe that originally that the Planning Commission was asked to change some components of their metrics to align with state statute. And again, we are out of alignment now by taking out character of the area from all residential zones. And I'm sorry that I missed last meeting because I would have had the opportunity to talk about how my mother wouldn't have been allowed to buy property in this country till 1957. So I could have jumped on that bandwagon too, but here we are. I think that rather than try to take it out everywhere and hope that erases the history that has passed, we ask questions and be inquisitive and talk to the state and understand the ramifications of the change.
So,
Push
I can answer some of
back a
that.
little
Okay.
bit. Can I push back a little bit?
Can I just, so, when removing character of the area in the Home Act, they had to get, that bill has to be approved from legislators from Chittenden County, Northeast Kingdom, Southern Vermont. So there are concessions you have to make in order to get votes on something like that. That was one of them. Senator Acacia Ron would have loved to have included that language statewide. in order to get it approved, you have to make edits. In Winooski, we're only thinking about Winooski, we're only hearing from folks in Winooski, so we don't have to worry about what folks in the Northeast Kingdom feel or think about the wording of character of the area. Aligning with statute or not aligning with statute, it was a priority of city councils because of the racist connotations for that to be removed. So even if it hadn't happened in statute, Revy and staff were talking about statute law as their advocacy for it to happen. Our advocacy for it to happen had nothing to do with statute. It was about the racial connotations and what has happened in this country as a result of that word. We will not be changing that.
Good to know.
We are not going to. Winooski is a city where we encourage, hope for, and thrive on the diversity that exists here. And it is not a city where we are going to have language in our legal documents that has racial exclusionary ties. I feel very strongly about that.
I hear you do.
It is on the Planning Commission to create regulations that will, if they so want, will limit building height, how much grass is on the area, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to call that character of the area, that's fine. But that's the work that currently exists in their documents. Previously it said that the building, or it currently says that the building that happened, that nobody likes on Franklin Street, myself included, was allowable. That happened with character of the area existing.
Can I butt in there?
I'm still talking. The building at the Armory project, similar situation. Character of the area existed on that in that time as well. So removing character of the area doesn't mean that Planning Commission can no longer set what they think a neighborhood should look like. In fact, that's the work that we told them to do. So I just want to be very clear here. Removing character of the area doesn't have an implication on what the city looks like. If folks want this particular neighborhood in the city to look a certain way, they need to make sure the Planning Commission is doing that work. But wanting to fall back on a racially charged term is not something that City Council wants.
I can understand that, but I think that the way that what is left now allows for 12 Franklin and also 8X Franklin, and that is what I object
The
to.
character of the area doesn't necessarily protect that either.
I just
Because
want
you
to
could
clarify
you
one
could have a
thing.
planning commission and a DRB that say, that meets the character of the area to me. It's subjective. So having character of the area doesn't prevent anything because it depends on what that person thinks the character of the area is.
So let's let Aaron jump in here.
I just want to clarify Franklin Street, and yes, it happened with the language in the code. However, Ravi made it very clear that his administrative approval did not take into account character of the neighborhood at all. He only focused on the hard numbers. And so,
Correct. That's what we want to make sure that you all are doing.
right, so I guess the subjectivity side of things though is if there is no subjectivity, then there's no need for a DRB at all. And so I think there has to be some
I
subjectivity
don't think
and
that's
some.
true. There will
It's
always be
always-
people
if it-
who would try to build outside of code. There will always be people who would try to push something.
But if it's just a formula that you go through the numbers and you say, yes, you meet all the numbers, then, what's the point?
There's always gray areas.
Yeah.
I'm a design professional. There's always gray, all the time.
Right,
Let me jump in because a couple of things. One, I'm going to again state that one of the things that we took out character of the area or neighborhood because the majority of the Planning Commission wanted it removed, the City Council wanted it removed for the reasons we said. But we want to define what we will replace that with. So in other words, define what we think character of the neighborhood means without using that term. The other thing on, on the Armory project, we put in incentives to try to get more affordable housing in. So incentives for affordable housing, one of which was to increase the number of units in a building from 4 to 6, if they met the criteria. Again, that was a discussion that we had at the planning commission that, you know, there are people in favor of it, people opposed to it. But that's where we came down. Again, the planning commission doesn't work in a vacuum. We know we get, I won't say instructions, but the city council, you know, they have their priorities and we know what they are. So we come up with regulations. We can put forward any regulation we want, but it has to get approved by the city council. So it doesn't do any good for us to put something in that the city council is vehemently opposed to. You know, so we try to work within the parameters that are set forward for us, as well as looking at what we feel is in the best interest of the city. I hope that makes sense, but that's just the reality of it. And in terms of character of the area, yeah, the term is gone, but it doesn't mean that we won't be looking at, you know, I'll use terms like, does it conform to the neighborhood? You know, those kind of things.
Are those in there, Mike?
What's that?
Where are those in the,
Well, I mean, we've got density and whatnot, but that's work we've got to do. And the other thing is, remember that we're going to be working on the comprehensive plan, whatever we end up calling it, municipal plan, comprehensive plan. Zoning regulations have to fit under the umbrella of the comprehensive plan.
mhm.
So that will identify, you know, what we want in different areas of the city, you know, traffic, all kinds of things.
I'll just add for under character of the area, under the Home Act, there are a number of references and safeguards to basically remove that whole character of the area element from the local review process. So one piece that the state had been working on for years was removing character of the area for conditional use review for housing projects.
Mhm.
They moved on to that and then removed that a DRB or a ZBA, some towns still use zoning for the Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, that they can't make a decision that would require a larger lot size than the minimum lot size that's determined in zoning. They can't require more parking spaces than the minimum determined in zoning. They can't limit the building size to less than what's allowed in zoning. They can't reduce the building footprint or height if that is the minimum allowed. They can't limit the density of dwelling units to below what's allowed in the bylaws. And they can't disallow a development that abide by the minimum or maximum standards. This is set in 24 VSA 4464 subsection 7A. And going beyond this, the state had set in place certain scaffolding so that municipalities would move towards standards and setting standards to define what is character of the area for years. They started out with the Enabling Better Places booklet that they put out in 2022 that specifies these are the types of zoning standards that you should have to build out your downtown to enable housing, enable affordable housing, enable all types of housing, because we are in this housing crisis. So building off of that, they have been pushing for more standards rather than using very nebulous concepts like character of the area in order to make decisions on housing projects. And that is what we are trying to follow here too, I think, is to follow through on best practices and follow through on state's guidance to mean what we say when we say what is character of the area.
Just to chime in, some examples are just the transparency amounts, the blank wall. We're looking at vegetation. We've talked about porches, incentives for those. Those are kind of the specifics that we've started looking at to understand that that's what defines Winooski somewhat. understanding that there's more density on the gateways in the downtown and there's less, but how do you accommodate more density even though there's currently less in those other areas? Those are the conversations, other than just character of the area, trying to get into those specifics, which is actually quite difficult, we found, but it's something we're trying to do.
And to comment on what it looks like way down the road when we've perfected all of our words and there's no longer a need for a DRB, which is not going to happen. Maybe what Winooski's identity will look like 50 years down the road will change. And then there will be new changes that we need to make to our code. And we will still need people in the DRB to review because words will always change, the identity of Winooski will change, and we need people there to interpret that, even with these strict, specific wordings that we are putting in place.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that the DRB should go away.
Good,
It was
we need
more
to.
of a kind of a hyperbole of like, if you remove all the subjectivity, then what is there left to debate at some of those meetings?
For sure. And I think that's,
I guess what I'm maybe more interested in is like setting aside the code, setting aside the Home Act. You know, I know that there are regulatory like framework that you need to work within, but you know, as you look at the different neighborhoods in the city, like what is that vision that's 10 years out, 20 years out? And you know, if the single family homes in the city are all converted over to, you know, 6-unit apartment buildings, again, exaggeration, but like if that happens, like is that fall within the vision of the planning commission and the vision of the city? Like, I guess that's kind of where some of these questions come from is, you know, looking at the patterns of development that we see and some of the larger developments occurring, you know, it's plausible to think, you know, if you look at it from a development standpoint, you want to put more units on a property, you want to increase your rate of return, and this is all allowed, you know, then maybe it does go forward and start to occur.
I'm glad you brought that up, Aaron, because one of my concerns is losing our single-family neighborhoods with all this stuff. But beyond that, you know, I think this next year when we're working on the comprehensive plan, that's where the vision has got to be stated. You know, what do we want for the different neighborhoods, et cetera. So hopefully we're going to get a lot of input from people and be able to put together a comprehensive plan that makes sense for what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, 50 years. And Revy, the comprehensive plan, it's not a 50-year horizon, is it?
It's a very long range horizon. Yeah, I mean, it's really looking per textbook like really 30 to 50 years ahead, and with the city reviewing it every 8 years to make sure that we're on track, make sure that it's still valid, and make sure that what we want is actually in there. So yeah, we should be, when we are looking at the comp plan later on this year, we should be looking at a 50-year horizon idealistically and thinking about where do we want to see the city and how do we get to that point.
And then,
I'll also comment, it was Trevor made the point. I always looked at the zoning regulations as a living document. It has to be modified and changed with what's going on at the time, and that's why we're always looking at different sections of it and trying to keep it in line with what we want to see and what is happening.
yeah, I guess I would speak to sort of what I see as a hopeful vision. I mean, I think we have unhoused students at the school district. We definitely have a housing crisis. I know plenty of people that would love to stay in this community but can't. And the way forward is, right, building affordable density, which I do believe we can do in a way that, you know, maintains the spirit and community of Winooski throughout, right? I think the people in this community and being able to stay and live here, I think that's what sort of defines us, you know, as opposed to sort of the specifics of our built infrastructure. But again, as we are building out, we do need to be thoughtful about it. I mean, I know you said before, build, but regardless of the consequences, and that's not how I feel like this development needs to happen. It needs to happen. And again, we're not gonna get skyscrapers that are going up tomorrow. And if that starts happening, that is something that we can sort of look at and sort of adjust our code. But yeah, I think we do need to build for what this community needs, and that is my my hope for the future. But being done in a really thoughtful, careful way, so that we can. And we've had discussions about, again, we have these larger buildings in the Gateway District, and how do we have the density sort of fan out, so we still do have those single-family houses and units in certain parts of Winooski, and there's not like a stark division between the two. And that's something that we've been talking about in our typologies report, is what does that gradient look like, and how do we sort of create code that maintains and incentivizes that.
I am going to be supremely unhelpful here because when I sit on the DRB, I totally want the regulations to be very clear, very laid out, easy to interpret. I'm on the path to being an architect, and I really despise a lot of the form-based code, and I'm worried about the application of it to the rest of the city. Very hard to legislate good design, as you're finding out, unintended consequences, and also added cost. Like, every community you build in, you design in, has a different form-based code, and they are extremely complex, to go back to what the first guest said. So you're talking about this typology project. This is sort of a pet peeve of mine, but so I'm gonna go ahead, because I have a microphone. What if somebody wants their house to look like a castle or a submarine with little portholes? Why is the city establishing this aesthetic regime of like a 19th century mill town that needs to be maintained? That's the character of the neighborhood we're trying to establish. But we talk about diversity of people we want here. What about diversity of buildings? I'm on my soapbox a little bit. But so counter to what I would feel on the DRB, I also feel like the nebulous part.
I'm glad you keep acknowledging that.
The nebulous part is useful, because what I wanted to say way back when you commented was, we did push back, I think, on the 8X Franklin. I forget what phase that's in, but we used something in there like that we could take into account the streetscape. And we told them to come back and put an entrance on the street. So there, it is helpful to have language that's not necessarily spelled out. Like, maybe it doesn't always work to put a porch there, so it doesn't need to be, if you try and specify every possible thing, your code's gonna be like this thick, it's gonna be unwieldy, and you're not even gonna know what you're gonna get, really. So in some cases, I feel like it can be helpful to have, this is like totally against what I was saying before, but to have the aspirational part, and to give the DRB some discretion in reviewing these cases.
Is it possible to have like a waiver process if you want to build a submarine house, or could that fall under like, we have this form-based
Variance.
code, if you're building one of these, you know what's gonna go on, but if you want to do something that, maybe doesn't meet those, and there's a process for it?
I don't think there is, and also, so my final point, not my final, but what I want to say, the form-based code, the form part seems to be a misnomer to me, because there's a lot of density and height and form of the building, but there's also a ton of regulation of the materials and the window proportions and all that. It's like, I would caution you against over-regulating, and I feel like it's too late in a sense. It's happened, and one of you said it was important to get something in there and then go back and deal with it. So when the form-based code first came in, I made a whole list of all this stuff. I was upset with this and this, and I came in and talked to, it was Eric and whoever was working with him to establish it, and they said, yeah, but we feel it's really important we get it in place, and then we're gonna fine-tune it. But it's too nitpicky to fine-tune. Like, if I want a horizontal window in my house instead of a vertical window, am I gonna come to City Hall and come to the City Council and argue to have the form-based code changed for my one project? I might, but, so I caution about putting something in just to put something in. Thanks. Thanks for hearing me rant.
I want to screw the submarine houses and castles.
Any other comments about the?
Yeah, sorry,
DRB?
Eli just came up to the table.
Hi, Mike.
Oh.
Hi, Eli Ogilvy, Winooski resident. I think it always, my perspective of it all is it's a balancing act, because you historically have had a lot of freedom with single-family home residents in the city for the longest time. And when the statute changed, we ended up with Franklin Street. So they had the flexibility to do just about anything they wanted to do, and we ended up with that building. So you could have a really beautiful castle, but you also have this building. So you gotta find the balance of not stopping and prohibiting any kind of building, but also allowing people to have the freedom to build what they want. So that's my perspective of it.
And just to jump onto that, I think part of what saves cities in the past is the small lot size. You know, somebody does something that everyone else hates, it's their property, you know, they have one little house here, one little apartment building, and now we have developers gathering all these lots, building block-long buildings, and if it's bad, then it's big and it's bad, and it's harder to accommodate that, I think, in the fabric of the city.
Yeah, there's definitely a piece of that where you can build nice if you want to, and we're basically restricting people from building poorly, is at the end of the day.
It's like codes are usually a minimum
Yeah.
standard.
So let me run back to, I think the first thing that Aaron brought up was the gas stations. And I guess it sounds like, to me, from what you've said and what I've heard, it's a problem unless we don't want gas stations in the gateway district, but I don't want to go there. So maybe we need to someone just brought the waiver, I don't know if it matters who, but some way to waive, you know, if an existing use, and tell me I'm crazy if I'm going off base here, an existing use wants to redevelop, that maybe they don't have to meet the specifics of the code, as long as the you know, it goes through DRB and you think it's a reasonable proposal. Does that make any sense?
How does our variance process work? I actually don't know.
So with nonconformities, so with form-based code, right? There's uses, which is not really taken into much consideration because the main emphasis is on the form, right? And then there's also allowances for nonconformities in the form-based code. So for gas stations are an allowed use in the Gateway District. For that particular site that was being referenced, the applicant was looking to redevelop the entire site and change the entire site layout and the placement of buildings. And because of the changing of the site layout, I determined that they would have to go through the full form-based code. And there is precedent for that we've required that applicants go through the full form-based code if they're changing the entire site layout. And they, after multiple exchanges, they said that they do not want to go through the full form-based code, and they said that they are in full compliance. And I said, no, you're not. So then this whole meeting happened. However, with non-conforming structures, you're allowed to keep whatever you have that's non-conforming. That's part of your bundle of property rights. You can maintain it, you can modify it to like this, what you have. You can repair it, you can keep it. And in the form-based code, you are allowed small additions, so additions of up to 20% of the structure, without having to go through the full form-based code. And if you're going to do anything between 20 to 50% of an addition, then there is additional standards that you'd have to meet in order to meet the form-based code, and then anything greater than 50% of an addition would require the full form-based code. So with the structure aspect of it, there's certain leniency for maintaining what you have. With curb cuts, that was a whole other conversation about this property too. You can retain what you have in terms of curb cuts. You cannot create any new curb cuts. If you want to, if you are going to redevelop, then DBW and I are going to want you to eliminate curb cuts as much as possible. Use common drives, get traffic away from the main street, and try to consolidate entry points so that way there are less conflict points. There's less places for crashes to happen between cars and on the main streets, on Main Street and on East Allen Street, and less likelihood of pedestrian fatalities, less likelihood of bicycle fatalities. That's our goal: improve safety on Main Street and East Allen Street, make it more attractive to walking and biking. So yeah, that's the formness of the form-based code. Certain allowances, certain caveats, overall goal, making it a pleasurable walking and biking experience for anyone.
But just to state, what it seems like is that the allowing gas stations doesn't fit with, the typical function of a gas station doesn't fit with the regulations for the form-based code. So a new gas station would be allowed if it met the
Yes,
requirements?
yes.
I mean, they were pretty adamant that it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
think.
hear that from developers a
they-
lot, so
Mhm.
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I think they came in and their issue was they wanted to kind of reconstruct their building, right? It's old, it's probably outdated, they wanted bigger space, they don't have any, they explained that they don't have any room for inventory, so as they think about stocking products as like a convenience store, they wanted a larger space, and in doing so, it would be a greater expansion than just the 20%. So then they got locked, with that, they got locked into all the other things that come along with form-based code, which is, the curb cuts, the second story, which they're like, why would we have a second story for a gas station, right? Like, you can see next door that it's not used, and they just kind of went down the list.
Like 70% of the facade of the street line had to be a building facade,
Yeah,
or some kind of facade.
Mhm.
yeah, right. The mobile station meets it because they have a brick portion of a wall.
Yeah. Street walls are acceptable for meeting the facade requirements.
So you just need to be careful if we don't want to drive gas stations out of the city.
But it sounds like they're doing more than just a gas station though. Or like, they could have what they have and they could make modifications, but they're trying to do more. Or am I misinterpreting that?
Well, I think.
They're trying to do more, they're just trying to move it back and then increase.
Sorry, you have to be by a mic.
You can come to a mic. No, I don't be by a mic.
Yeah.
We got extras here.
Yeah.
We got plenty.
Yeah, I mean,
Move
even
on.
going with the additions and modifications, I mean, so the canopy is a structure, and whatever buildings they have is a structure. They can make a 20% addition to the entire structure. So there is certain wiggle room, modification, alteration with the footprint that they have. They just need to work within the footprint. That's the way that I read it.
Right, I guess the message that I heard, and I don't know if you heard something different, but it was that didn't fit what they desired to do. Right?
With a business plan, because gas stations make their money on the store, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they didn't have a large enough store to make it compete with the other gas stations. Or to make sense to redevelop it, is what it sounded like. I'm putting words in his mouth, but
I think
that's,
that was the message.
I'll just push back and say there is a way to be creative with what they have.
So, given that it's 7:45, why don't we move on to recent changes in the land use regulations? Remy, I'll leave that to you.
Sure. So the planning commission's discussed a number of changes that we've referenced tonight already. So with the character of the area changes, that went into effect last month on June 8th. Those regulations are up on the city website. Council is reviewing a number of changes related to the umbrella of gentle infill. Although not everything pertains to gentle infill, but it pertains to housing itself. So that will be up on the city website by the end of the day tomorrow for council to consider on Monday. The public hearing notice has been posted. Council had an introduction to the amendments. They talked about it during their May 18th meeting, and in June 15th meeting already. So this package of amendments includes the blank wall limitations, transparency requirements, building orientation requirements, what else? And then a number of technical small changes. And alongside all of that, Planning Commission's been discussing a lot of other changes too related to the building typologies project and a number of other technical elements that Planning Commission members would like to see in the regulations. So there's definitely more to come with the building typologies report. A version of the draft report is up on the city website. It's in the June. When did we meet? In the beginning of June. Let's see. Pull up my calendar. Let's see. June 11th meeting. There was a discussion on the building typologies draft. And then a finalized draft will come to you as well, to the Planning Commission later this month. So the consultants and I are working together on packaging that for finalization. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it, Mike.
Yeah, I think so, and I was just gonna add, and I would ask folks on the Planning Commission and DRB if they have any other things that they think we should be looking at. One of the things that I would like to look at is driveway and private road, if you will. You know, how many units can be served by a driveway, what requirements are for a private road, if it's serving more than a certain number of units, and I'll throw 3 out there, I don't know if that's the right number or not, but we have to have a discussion about that. And that's kind of, that popped in my mind. I hate to keep bringing Franklin Street up, but, 8X Franklin Street, I know that the developer is looking at putting, I think it's 27 more units behind there going over to LeClaire Street, and want to make sure that the access into those units is appropriate. Anyone have any other thoughts, items that they think we need to discuss?
I had one other on my list, and it was just, I kind of noticed over the last maybe 6 months or so, there seemed to be some discussion about whether DPW had been incorporated into the review of projects that are brought forward. And I was just wondering, is it worth it, like, codifying that DPW is part of that review process, or codifying where they're part of that review process? I know it usually is like checked off that, yep, it's been sent to DPW, they've commented on it. But I also feel like we've heard a few times that it's either gotten to them very late or not at all. So just wondering about that.
And fire.
Yeah, I think I brought that up because back in the day, when I held a different position, we had talked about, and actually it was when we were trying to encourage development, and we had a one-step process. Where someone came in to get approvals, they went to the zoning district or the director of planning, and then a group of, I said department heads, maybe I misspoke, but different departments looked at the proposal to make sure that it met their requirements. So public safety, DPW, water and sewer, etc. And I'm hoping that that's coming back. I think that's what you're talking about, Aaron?
I think so, yep.
Yeah. And I think I was told, yeah, we're gonna make sure that happens. And Remy, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Yeah, I mean, for the last 6, 8 months, I've been revising processes and such, and I think I've kind of been calibrating a lot. So when I started, Eric gave me a nice 20-page primer on how to do this well, and I've kind of followed it to the T and have been sort of learning the process of like, how do I make this work better? And so with DBW, I hope you've been noticing that I've been holding back a lot more for DRB review until it goes through DBW first. DBW and I meet monthly. We go through every single project that's on my desk, and I don't warn it until DBW's seen it. They are at capacity, so their review time takes a little bit longer than other departments. But with all housing-related projects, all major projects, most projects really, it goes through DBW and code enforcement. Code enforcement, I will say, is very, very flexible and amenable to the process, and are very responsive. But with DBW, it takes some, we go through some back and forth. And I think you've also noticed that too in more recent projects with DBW having comments, and it goes back and forth a little bit, and then we iron it out in the process. I'm not too familiar with what the process was before me with that DBW coordination. I've been hearing through the grapevine that maybe that happened after the initial review process with the DRB, that then it goes to DBW. In past experiences in past places, depending on the size and scope of the project, I would have some sort of like project review meeting that Mike referred to, that would have DBW in the room first. So I'm trying to pull from all my different experiences and make sure that DBW sees it first, and then it goes to DRB for DRB review projects. And before I sign off on it. DBW can pull from section 4.15 on stormwater review, 4.16 on utilities. So that's where their authority draws from on making comments, making determinations. So if it fails stormwater review, then I can exercise denying a project because it doesn't meet zoning. If it has public utility impacts, I can deny a project because UPDW has determined that they can't take on this project under the license. So they do have certain power and certain amount of leverage that they can utilize per the ULUDR right now.
And Mike is aware of this because I've spoken to him about it, but I've asked Elaine to do a presentation to Planning Commission as well as the City Council from DPW and Fire on what capacity looks like in their opinions. Similar to what Ravi said, I think we're probably waiting on DPW on that because of how backed up they are at creating a presentation for Planning and Council. Probably isn't the top of their list, I'm gonna guess. Yeah, that is an ask I have, and I know that they are gonna make that happen as soon as they can.
Just to get clarification on that, I think in the downtown district, what Mike described is codified. Like
Yes,
that it has
so
to
there
do what he
is
described.
something that's called a project review committee, John. So for project review committee, if the applicant meets all of checks off the boxes for zoning pretty much and meets requirements for zoning or is close to it, then I set up what's called a project review committee with all the department heads listed. That meeting is open to the public, that meeting is publicly warned, notices are sent to adjacent property owners for them to attend and provide comment on a project in the Gateway District. So yes, that part is codified for the gateways.
I guess the only other area that maybe I've got a question on is parking, and I know there are limitations on what can be required. I have seen DPW has commented a few times that, parking is anticipated to be an issue, even though it meets the requirements of the code. I see, the end of Bellevue Street where the development has occurred there. It's basically a one-way roadway, for the last block, because, parking on the street. It seems like, and I know this is codified by the Home Act, but one parking space per unit, no matter the number of rooms, like, seems a little wild. Like 4-bedroom unit, one parking spot. So I don't know if the planning commission had thoughts on that, or if I've heard any concerns about that.
I will, yeah, I've had concerns all the way along, to tell you the truth, but, like I always say, I'm one voice of 5 voting members, so, we go with the majority.
Yeah. Like Burlington has less than us requirements as a comparison.
So Burlington doesn't have parking minimums, they have parking maximums, if I'm not mistaken. And then South Burlington doesn't have parking minimums, except for, I think, in certain locations and for like multifamily dwellings, and even then it's less than a car per unit. Studies generally show that even when you remove parking minimums, developers will still include parking, because that is a desired amenity in the US.
Sure.
All of us have cars. So the parking is included, and the parking doesn't reduce drastically when you do remove parking minimums in regulations. So that's best practice. However, I'm aware that in the last couple of years, there have been planning commission members that have been concerned about the amount of parking, and whether there's enough parking, and how do we balance on-street and off-street parking, so that way we put the cars off the street and then we use the street for biking or for walking. So I think planning commission is still trying to figure out that balance, right, Mike?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, you said use the street for walking, so you're advocating I can walk down the middle of the street?
I mean, you don't have a sidewalk where you live, so I mean,
I do.
He's got a-
I have to sidewalk on my side of the
oh,
street.
you're on your side, okay.
So I have to shovel it in the winter.
Yeah, it's something city council has been going, not recently, we haven't talked about it recently, but back in the day, Mike, we had lots of conversations about it, and it led to things like when, the presentation on what we should do on the Fountain Street, for example, in terms of all the bump outs and streetscaping, city council actually asked for more parking to be maintained on the Fountain Street as a result of parking being limited in some of the new buildings that would happen around there. So it is a balancing act that I think we're all trying to still work on. Obviously, realizing that many people have cars, but some people are trying to get away from cars. Some households have 5 cars for 2 bedrooms, some have 0 for 6 bedrooms. So it's a balance.
The whole thing is a balancing act.
Yeah.
So, any other final comments from anyone on the DRB that hasn't spoken, even if you have spoken, from the planning commission?
I do have a sort of a broader issue. I'd like to step back for a second. I mentioned how we're sort of at the tail end of the process and we see a lot of angry people. And I often tell them, you should go to the planning commission. And I know that's a hard sell, you know.
Don't do that to us, for God's sakes.
I don't think they ever follow through.
Nobody follows through.
No.
So my question is about education. You know, I feel like we have an educational,
One person follows.
you follow through, Kate follows through. But we have an educational mission a little bit, you know, try and help people and explain to them. Ravi does when we're there and he does when he's not there as well. But I'm wondering, realizing everybody has very limited bandwidth, what we can do to educate people about some of these issues or how the code works, you know. If Ravi gives like maybe a couple times a year or whatever, he gives like a code seminar on this chapter or this issue, or, you know, the state has, they publish like 1-page code sheets explaining, here's how fire alarms work in Vermont, or you can't put your grill in your bathtub or whatever. So it could be like, here's how PUDs work, or even just having, I don't know, we have a public information officer say, this is what the planning commission just passed, and here's what it means, sort of thing. Like, here's a sheet you can click on the webpage or something. Just thoughts about how we can disseminate some of this, so it's not like people seeing it for the first time when they're angry and trying to figure out a very complicated legal.
Yeah.
I mean, one is to simplify it, and that's on you, but two is to explain it somehow.
And I think, when you have these situations that make people so mad, right? So like the armory made some people mad, some people very happy, but a message to all of them was, when the planning commission was making the rules that allowed for this to be built, that's when you should have been there. That doesn't help the situation, but it kind of helps to educate people on where you actually have to put that advocacy. You should advocate in the moment, of course, but like if your desire was to have not have made that allowable, you need to be paying attention to what planning commission is talking about. I find that situations like that are helpful to educate people. It's a bad thing that helps educate, but you can tell people all day, go to the planning commission, go to the planning commission, go to the planning commission, until you really have something that shows them this is why you should have gone. On the other side as well, if you want more buildings that look like that across the city, you've got to go to the planning commission, you've got to talk to people at the planning commission. So, one thing we're trying to do, and I'll brief a little bit more, but like, you all are perfect advocates out in the city. You've got your networks, you have your own social media, et cetera, like, you should, and the ask of council is that you are communicating these things in the community. We've got one marketing person in the city who, I love that idea. I love what you just said. I have a feeling if we propose that at our next council meeting, we're going to be told that there's not capacity to do something like that. There should be. Then I need another marketing person have to ask you all for a lot more money in your taxes, But what we do have right now is all of you, and there's members on your boards that aren't here right now, so there's even more of you. Like, you are all, can and should, like, take to Front Porch Forum, go talk, hold meetings with, local friends, do the, street parties. Like, we want you to be communicating these difficult things to people that are confusing, people don't understand. Not everybody comes to our city council meetings to hear what's going on in the planning commission. In a perfect world, they would, but in the reality in a small city, like our ability to communicate succinctly is difficult. But it's so important. So it's an ask we have of commissioners is to, we want you to show up to your meeting, once a month, but also act as stewards is what is happening on your meetings as well. Because there is an understanding of what's going on. And not just because it's confusing. I think even if planning was able to create some beautiful document that everybody could read at a third grade level, there's still people who aren't gonna access it.
Yep. Anything else? Kate or Eli, last chance to throw something at us.
Can I ask one thing,
Thank you.
just following up from that point? I'm Brian, new alternate member on the Planning Commission. Hello, everybody. Also touching back on the point about how the points of the municipal plan flow into the ULUDR. I think the comprehensive plan development that's going on right now is a big opportunity to involve more of the community and also present higher level initiatives in a more approachable way, where it's not like you have to share the whole ULUDR document with somebody and ask them to have to sift through it, but really talking about priorities and vision at a higher level. There's an open house series that's going on right now. I was wondering, Revy, if you could speak to that a little bit, and if there's anything that we could do as commission members to support that work.
Sure. So we've had a couple open houses for the comprehensive plan. Each of these open houses have been focused on different sections of the comprehensive plan. The first one in late May was on the land use section. Second one last month was on the economic vitality section. be having one later this month on municipal infrastructure with a focus on transportation, and then one next month on Safe Healthy Connected. It's the summer, and other than today, it's usually beautiful. So I understand that not everybody wants to attend a meeting inside or has the time to do it. So we do have surveys up live for the two open houses that have happened. So you can share the word about the surveys at least, and get the word out. Those surveys include draft language for goals and actions. What do we want to see in the city, and what are the steps that we want to take to get to there, right? So sharing that information will be very helpful for us as we talk more about developing and putting together the comprehensive plan. And definitely there's more information to come on the municipal infrastructure and Safe Healthy Connected sections in the coming weeks.
Anything else? All right, we have an update from Mr. Mayor. Do you have an update for us?
Yeah, I can talk about some things since our last meeting. So you all vote on the tax rate, it gets approved, and then council has to formally pass it it's a few months later. So we did that at our last meeting. So just as a reminder, it's a 6.38% increase. So if you have a property that's worth $414,000, which is the average price of a property in the city these days, that will be a $200.79 increase. Sorry, $200.79. It's late and I've had a long day. But yes, $200.79 if your property is worth $414,000 annually. Correct. Yes. Other updates. Council recently toured the hotel and workforce housing that is being built. The work in there is truly impressive. I can't wait for you all to be able to see it. The workforce housing, they are already starting to lease units. Actually, when I approached, they were like, "Oh, Tim, you're looking for a 2-bedroom, right?" And I was like, "No, not at all." But so they've got, I forget what they said, but something like 60% of the units are already leased in there. Should be completed in July. The hotel, they're shooting for opening September 21st, and then like the week or 2 weeks after that, they'll do like an official big grand opening. But that two big parts. Well, the hotel really is a huge part of our strategic vision for many years. That's kind of the last slot that we need down there to fill what the city was hoping for. And I just think it's going to be a big and a huge boost for tax revenue for the city, but also will help alleviate some of the short-term rental strain. So just really excited for that. And then, workforce housing. Actually, a cool thing about the workforce housing, the manager of the hotel has already kind of slotted some of their full-time employees into the workforce housing right next door, so they'll have a nice short commute. So yeah, again, July for the housing and September for the hotel. We've been doing a lot of work in the city council on commissions. Doesn't really apply to planning or DRB because you're mandated by the state, but for our other commissions, we're really trying to find ways to make being on a commission more, what's a good word? Honestly, just feel more worthwhile for the people who are on it. I don't know if any of you serve on any other commissions, but what staff and council are seeing are a lot of times there's either meetings are getting canceled because there's just nothing for them to talk about, or they're going to meetings and they don't really feel very substantive. The commissions were created to be a policy advisory board to city council. We don't always have policy we need them looking at, or we're not always creating policy that we feel needs to be looked at by another board or needs to be looked at by another board before we pass it. So we're having a lot of conversations on just what the commissions are going to look like going forward. There's always open to hear from folks if you have any thoughts, if you've heard anything, or like I said, if you serve on the current commission. But I just really want it to be a process that makes people feel like their time is being used appropriately, both for the commissioners and for the city staff who have to oversee the commissions. We've done some slight edits that Mike knows about our external commission holders. Essentially, the city has some boards that there's somebody who represents the city on that board, so like Green Mountain Transit or Champlain Solid Waste District. So essentially, what we were asking for there as a council is just some more communication and feedback, so that those, so that we make sure that those folks who are there, one, are feeling supported by the city council and by the city, but also so that residents actually know what's happening on those boards. You know, we have somebody on Green Mountain, I'm not saying this is true, but there could be somebody on Green Mountain Transit who's making votes, talking about things, and nobody on the city actually even knows that there is a board meeting that they could attend and listen to, and we have a vote on. So did some changes there, and just what we're asking for in terms of updates from the folks who serve over there. And Mike is one of those people on the, I forget I know the acronym, Mike, but what's the full name?
Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission.
Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. So that's why I said Mike knows about it, because he got the memo that City Council passed.
Yeah, and I sent you something today, so I didn't get in trouble right at the start.
Oh, wow, look at that. And I told you you didn't have to until September, so look at that. So yeah, we just want to make sure, you know, these are bodies that are responsive and to residents, so we just want to make sure that everybody is getting the most out of them. Yeah, that's good for now, I think. Any questions?
Okay. Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you.
No one from the Inclusion in the Line Commission, so how about Ravi?
I don't think I have too much because I just got back from vacation. And let's see, as mentioned, City Council is meeting on Monday to hold a public hearing on the ULUDR updates regarding the blank wall elements, building orientation elements, transparency requirements, and a number of other pieces in the ULUDR. More information about that will be up on the city website by the end of the day, Friday. Open house series, as Brian mentioned, more information about that in the coming weeks, but on the city website, you can access the open house page and the surveys for both the land use section and the economic vitality section. So feel free to spread the word about that, feel free to fill it out yourselves if you'd like. I think that's all I have for now.
So under other business, I'll just say that I thought it was nice to get together with the DRB, and I'm hopeful, I don't know how many times you folks want to get together with us, but I think it's helpful to get together, I don't know, what do you think? Once or twice a year? 3 times a year? Every month? Well, Aaron, I know you're not shy about this. What do you think? And David, what do you think? A couple times a year, once a year?
I just want to thank Aaron for the original idea. I think it was a really good one.
For sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say under other business, thanks Ravi for arranging this. I think this has been a good, productive discussion. I'd love to see it at least once a year, you know, if not twice a year. I don't think we'll have enough content every month, but I hope we don't anyway.
Why don't we try for twice a year? I mean, I don't think it'll hurt to try to get together twice a year.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so January and July.
Sure. 2 hot months. Hot in terms of, you know, nothing else to do, right?
I thought you were saying you're just gonna be in Florida for January.
No, I don't think I'll be in Florida for January. All right, so we'll set that up. Any other business from anybody? You guys, it's 8:15, I see you want to get out of here, right? Must be a World Cup game on tonight.
It's already over today.
Yeah, it's already over.
France already won. Spoilers, sorry.
Oh, I didn't look.
All right, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn. So it's a joint meeting, so Remy, should we have a separate Motions to adjourn?
I don't think it matters.
I think this is technically a planning commission meeting, right? We're just attending it.
I mean, I put it in as joint,
Yeah.
so, I don't think it.
Well, how about we have a motion to adjourn from a planning commission person and a second from a DRB member?
There you go.
I'll make a
Second.
motion. Oh, there we go. Motion second.
All right, thank you.
Perfect.
Is there a second?
Yep,
There we
so
go.
John motion and Aaron seconded.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. I won't even ask about any nays or abstentions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Remy. Thanks,
Thank you.
Kate, for coming, and thanks,